Hello everyone and welcome to my third review. Now, I don't have enough time in order to explain everything that I should, so if you'd like to know more about my third episode, simply pause and read below. Have you done so yet? Good, then let's get started. There was Eru, the One, who in Arda is called Iluvata, and he made first the Ainur, the Holy Ones, that were the offspring of his thought. And they were with him before aught else was made. And he spoke to them, propounding them themes of music, and they sang before him, and he was glad. And it came to pass that Iluvata called together all the Ainu, and declared to them a mighty theme. Then Iluvata said to them, "Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now that you make in harmony together a great music." Then the voices of the Ainur began to fashion the theme of Iluvata to a great music, and never since have the Ainur made any music like to this music, though it has been said that a greater still shall be made before Iluvata by the choirs of the Ainur and the children of Iluvata after the end of days. But now Iluvata sat and hearkened, and for a while it seemed good to him, for in the music there were no flaws. But as the theme progressed, it came into the heart of Melkor to interweave matters of his own imagining, that were not in accord with the theme of Iluvata, for he sought therein to increase the power and glory of the part assigned to himself. To Melkor, among the Ainur, had been given the greatest gifts of power and knowledge, and he had a share in all the gifts of his brethren. He had gone often into the void places seeking the imperishable flame, for desire grew hot within him to bring into being things of his own, and it seemed to him that Iluvata took no thought for the void, that he was impatient of its emptiness. Yet he found not the fire, for it is with Iluvata. But being alone, he had begun to conceive thoughts of his own, unlike those of his brethren. Some of these thoughts he now wove into his music, and straightway discord arose about him, and many that sang nigh him grew despondent. The thought was disturbed, and the music faltered. But some began to attune their music to his rather than to the thought which they had at first. Then the discord of Melkor spread ever wider, and the melodies which had been heard before foundered in a sea of turbulent sound. But Iluvata sat and hearkened, till it seemed that about his throne there was a raging storm. Then Iluvata arose, and the Ainur perceived that he smiled. He lifted up his left hand, and a new theme began amid the storm, like yet unlike to the former theme. But the discord of Melkor rose in uproar, and contended with it, and again there was a war of sound more violent than before, until many of the Ainur were dismayed and sang no longer, and Melkor had the mastery. Then again Iluvata arose, and the Ainur perceived that his countenance was stern, and he lifted up his right hand, and behold, a third theme grew amid the confusion, and it was unlike the others. And it seemed at last that there were two musics progressing at one time before the seat of Iluvata, and they were utterly at variance. The one was deep and wide and beautiful, but slow and blended with an immeasurable sorrow, from which its beauty chiefly came. The other had now achieved a unity of its own. It was loud and vain and endlessly repeated, and it had little harmony,
but rather a clamorous unison as of many trumpets, braying upon a few notes. In the midst of this strife, whereas the halls of Iluvatar shook, and a tremor ran out into the silences yet unmoved, Iluvatar arose a third time, and his face was terrible to behold. Then he raised up both his hands, and at one chord the music ceased. Then Iluvatar spoke, and he said, "Mighty are the Ainur, and mightiest among them is Melkor, but that he may know, and all the Ainur, that I am Iluvatar. Those things that you have sung, I will show them forth, that you may see what you have done. And you, Melkor, shall see that no theme may be played that have not its uttermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite." Then the Ainur were afraid, and they did not yet comprehend the words that were said to them. And Melkor was filled with shame, of which came secret anger. Then Iluvatar arose and went forth, and the Ainur followed him. And when they had come into the void, Iluvatar said to them, "Behold your music." And he showed to them a vision. And they saw a new world made visible before them. And as they looked and wondered, this world began to unfold its history. And when the Ainur had gazed for a while, and were silent, Iluvatar said again, "Behold your music. This is your minstrelsy, and each of you shall find contained therein, amid the design that I set before you, all those things which it may seem that he himself devised or added." And many other things Iluvatar spoke to the Ainur at that time. Because of the memory of his words, the Ainur know much of what was, and is to come. Yet some things there are that they cannot see, for to none but himself has Iluvatar revealed all that he has in store. And the Ainur saw with amazement the coming of the children of Iluvatar, and the habitation that was prepared for them. For the children of Iluvatar were conceived by him alone, and they came with the third theme. Now the children of Iluvatar are elves and men, the firstborn and the followers. And amid all the splendors of the world, Iluvatar chose a place for their habitation. And when the Ainur had beheld this habitation in a vision, and had seen the children of Iluvatar rise therein, then many of the most mighty among them bent all their thought and their desire toward that place. And of these Melkor was the chief, even as he was in the beginning the greatest of the Ainur who took part in the music. And he feigned even to himself at first that he desired to go thither and order all things for the good of the children of Iluvatar, controlling the turmoils of the heat and the cold that had come to pass through him. But he desired rather to subdue to his will both elves and men, envying the gifts with which Iluvatar promised to endow them, and he wished himself to have subjects and servants, and be called Lord, and to be a master over other wills. But the other Ainur looked upon this habitation set within the vast spaces of the world, which the elves call Arda, the earth, and their hearts rejoiced in light. But while the Ainur were yet gazing upon this vision, it was taken away and hidden from their sight. And some have said that the vision ceased ere the fulfillment of the dominion of men, and the fading of the firstborn. Then there was unrest among the Ainur, but Iluvatar called to them and said, "I know the desire of your minds, that what you have seen should verily be. Therefore I say, Ea, let these things be. And I will send forth into the void the flame imperishable, and shall be at the heart of the world. And the world shall be. And those of you that will may go down into it." Thus it came to pass that of the Ainur some abode still with Iluvatar beyond the confines of the world. But others, and among them many of the greatest and most fair, took the leave of Iluvatar and descended into it. But Iluvatar laid this condition upon them, that thenceforth their power should be contained and bounded in the world, and therefore they are named the Valar, the powers of the world. Then the Valar took to themselves shape and hue, after the children of Iluvatar, that they had beheld in the vision, save only in majesty and splendor. And the Valar drew unto them many companions, and they labored together in the ordering of the earth and the curbing of its tumults. Then Melkor saw what was done, and that the Valar worked on earth as powers visible, and were lovely and glorious to see, and the earth was becoming as a garden for their delight, for its turmoils that he had made were subdued. His envy grew then the greater within him, and he also took visible form. But because of his mood and the malice that burned in him, that form was dark and terrible, and he descended upon Arda in power and majesty greater than any other of the Valar. Thus began the first battle of the Valar with Melkor for the dominion of Arda. But little would the Valar ever tell the wars before the coming of the elves. Yet it is told among the Eldar that the Valar endeavored ever, in despite of Melkor, to rule the earth and to prepare it for the coming of the firstborn. They built lands, and Melkor destroyed them. Valleys they delved, and Melkor raised them up. Mountains they carved, and Melkor threw them down. Seas they hollowed, and Melkor spilled them. And naught might have peace or come to lasting growth. For as surely as the Valar began a labor, so would Melkor undo it or corrupt it. Yet their labor was not in vain, though nowhere and in no work was their will and purpose wholly fulfilled, and all things were in hue and shape other than the Valar had at first intended. Slowly, none the less, the earth was fashioned and made firm, and thus was the habitation of the children of Iluvatar established at the last, in the deeps of time, and amidst the innumerable stars.